Okay, was this like the New Yorkiest of New York weeks? I just love it when we take our identity and shove it down the world's road. We're already so obnoxious. Us New Yorkers, oh my gosh. Anyway, we just were on fire with the Knicks and the Puerto Rican Day Parade and the World Cup. It's like everything. And I just need to say, I know that the Knicks having this team had to do not at all with us having a young, popular mayor. But it's hard not to see the correlation that New York is winning again. And I need to be the first person before anybody adds me in the comments. I know I was admittedly a skeptic for such Gen X-y reasons, not because he was a democratic socialist, but because I almost felt like, is he going to be like that bodysuit I bought on Instagram? He just was so good at social media. And I don't think I had understood yet this is how we are getting to people, right? Young, especially to young people, is through this medium and through social media. And instead I was like, is this like a schmaltzy bad sales pitch? But he's been amazing. And I think the part about it, I know everybody was going to pack up and leave. I'd love to see that now. It's much more to say. Amanda Littman posted this video.
The vibes in New York City right now are once in a generation good. Let me tell you why. Millennial leadership, baby. That's optimism. That's joy. That's cringe. That's a little bit of earnestness. That's an idea that actually things can be better and we will make it so. Let the late 80s, early 90s kids run things. We got it.
And it's hard not to say, aside from the fact that we've been a headless horseman in the city for 2 administrations, basically where it's felt like nobody was in charge, we feel a sense of presence. But the fact that presence is young, I don't know. I think that there's something to that. It feels like there's energy. It feels like we are thinking about the future. And you contrast that with at the exact same time that Trump's birthday thing is going on, Mitch McConnell is actually hospitalized during the president's 80th birthday where he's struggling to go downstairs.
Mitch McConnell was admitted to the hospital about 9 a.m. this morning. Neighbors reported seeing him being loaded onto a stretcher and then loaded into an ambulance and being taken to the hospital.
It's like when people say the majority of people feel like the country's best days are past them, it's hard not to feel that way when the person at the top of the chart, his best days are past him. Like, even if he wasn't despicable, his best days are past him. Let's just be honest. And it's like, there's something about having somebody with some pep in their step that's looking forward to their own future that makes you feel like they are really thinking about the future instead of what can I hoard right now, that brings a sense of hope. It's just crazy. And other New Yorker news, I talked to CNN this week for a piece reignited by J-Lo, but frankly, let's just give credit where credit is due. We've been having this discourse all year since the Kid Miro took over Hot 97's morning show about native New Yorkers and what's a native New Yorker and what does that really mean. And then J-Lo was on Subway Takes and spoke her truth.
So what's your take?
You have to be born in New York to be a New Yorker. Yes!
Okay,
Yeah, I know everybody
agree.
wants to claim the city.
No, I know.
Everybody wants to claim our city, but you have to be born in New York. You have to be born in one of the 5 boroughs to be a New Yorker.
She spoke her truth. And a lot of people got really salty about this. And one of the things that didn't make it to the article that I think is so important, this guy had the best take.
And what's wrong with saying the truth? Nobody was saying the show wasn't good. It's just you weren't from New York, and New York has a certain thing about New Yorkers. It's very important to discuss what high school you went to, junior high, where you hung out in the city, where you did things, what clubs you went to. It's just an important thing to us.
Like, basically, be okay with being honorary. But what I think people haven't been talking about that I think is so interesting and that I talked about at CNN is what we're really actually responding to is a class thing, because I think with J-Lo, we can joke about her and the block that she's on, how bad or not bad that block was, but the New York that made J-Lo was a dangerous place, all right? Again, she's older than me, but I'm almost 50. These are stats from my book, just to paint a picture, because the new New Yorkers, you will have a soft situation on your hands. First of all, aside from the fact that generationally, Gen Z and millennials get more familial support than any other generation. Half of millennials and half of Gen Zs get some kind of family support. And that was just not true of previous generations. So a lot of y'all are moving to the city with a little bit of help. I'm not judging, I'm just saying. But the other part was like, you had to just be very tough. In 2024, there were 377 murders in New York. In 1990 and 1991, when I was a freshman in high school, there were more than 2,000 each year, okay? In 1991, there were an astonishing over 5,000 rapes, reported rapes, which means how many other rapes were there? Post-COVID, when everybody's freaking out about how dangerous the city felt, there were 80% more burglaries and robberies in New York in 1993 than there were here in 2022 post-COVID, okay? So when it all felt so lawless. So first of all, when you're talking to a native New Yorker, especially a native New Yorker that's over 40 years old, put a little respect on their name because they came up. And I think when you're hearing people get defensive, and in this guy's video, and I like this, he gives you bonus points if you lived here for 9/11.
We'll start out with the obvious and easy one. If you're born and raised in New York City, you are a real New Yorker. If you moved to New York City and lived here for 30 plus years, you are a honorary New Yorker. If you moved to New York City and lived here for 20 years, you are a associate New Yorker. If you moved to New York City starting January 2001 and lived here ever since, you are considered an honorary New Yorker via special circumstances.
Because it was a crazy special time. You were also there then for the blackout. It's like we went through something, and this is just a safer, softer city. And I think part of that, and knowing that you had that grit, and knowing that most of the people that are claiming that identity it was a much more working class city. There's some pushback on the people that transplant and come in, usually for white collar jobs, because so many of us were the children of blue collar people and city workers and teachers. So I actually think that when we talk about the New York thing, what we're really talking about, in my opinion, is a class thing. The number one thing native New Yorkers will say is, where'd you go to school? And usually they're thinking you're going to say a public school, sometimes a Catholic school, much less often a private school. But that's why we're like trying to get a sense of who we're talking to. Anyway, I say all this to say is that everybody that lives in New York, that loves New York, let's celebrate the Knicks. But just know that this is extra special. Please don't colonize the feelings. This means a lot more. So please, Spike Lee, patron saint right now, to that native New Yorker that has been watching them lose for a whole lifetime and feeling it in their blood. Please, anyway, the New York of it all. All right, speaking of New Yorkers, I thought it would be good to talk about, Gwyneth Paltrow made a lot of discourse because she had the CEO of Anduril, which is a defense AI company, on her Goop podcast.
I noticed with my own husband, too, who's the best person ever in the world. He's so progressive. Like, he has such a sweet heart, and he wants to, like, make sure everybody's looked after. I'm pretty centrist, and my husband thinks I'm a Republican, which I'm not a Republican. I mean, I don't feel anything right now, to be totally honest with you. I feel like I'm completely an independent.
And most of the waves that she made were because she was talking about how her husband thinks of her as a Republican and she doesn't feel anything, which people were like, how can you feel nothing in this moment? And how could you feel like a Republican? Or how could you feel neutral? Meredith Lynch, very astutely and wisely, was like, wait.
That episode is actually terrifying because it is a conversation between Gwyneth Paltrow and this man named Trey Stevens. And who is Trey Stevens? Well, I'm so glad you asked. He is a former Palantir employee, a good friend of Peter Thiel's. He has an AI defense company that makes AI weapons for the US government.
The real thing we should be freaking out about is the fact, why does the Goop podcast have the CEO of an AI defense company on? What is that about? Why are they trying to normalize wartime defense? I was thinking about that because then this morning, I wouldn't watch it. I didn't watch it. I couldn't watch the UFC match on the front lawn of the White House.
Oh, the land of the free and the home of the brave.
And I understand that lots of people love UFC, but to me, this felt defiling. I don't know, corporate sports on the front lawn. And I think that there were some UFC fighters that actually spoke out about this that also didn't agree and thought it was partisan and politicizing of the party of UFC. UFC now has entered into an agreement with the State Department, and they're about to be part of our soft diplomacy policy. So they're making money now, hand over fist on this. But more interesting, and why I'm even bringing it up, is that Andrew was running ads during this match. Again, they are a defense contractor. We consumers cannot go and buy an Andrew product. They can sell things to the government, which they clearly already have. Otherwise, why would they? They're clearly in business. What is happening that they are trying to normalize? And let's face it, Goop, UFC cage match in front of the White House, to a white audience, this AI in defense, and that they are running elaborate commercials.
We must be the great arsenal of democracy. We will pay any price, support any friend, oppose any foe, to ensure the survival and success of liberty. We maintain our strength in order to deter and defend against aggression. But make no mistake, when pushed, we'll do what it takes to win.
And then I looked it up, and Andrew has now entered into a partnership with UFC. So this wasn't a one-off. This is a relationship that they are trying to build with a defense AI government contractor and the UFC and the fans of the UFC. What is happening here? And what is this campaign, this political campaign, this PR campaign, I should say, to try and normalize all this really about? And then, speaking of normalizing weird things, so as all of you all know, Americans, for all of the challenges that have been brought up in democracy and all of the restrictions on voting rights going on and the Supreme Court gutting the Voting Rights Act, one area that's been amazing is the way in which local communities have been gathering together to fight against these data centers that are polluting people's water systems, that are running up energy bills, that are driving people crazy because of the humming noises.
So I'm not anti-development, as you can imagine. I do it for a living. What I'd ask you to do is to hear this from a real estate developer's perspective, though. The DC Block's proposal next to the National Zoo is the wrong project, in the wrong place, at the wrong time, and I'm here to support Councilmember Horton's bill.
And so Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank had been trying to build this data center that was like the size of Manhattan, basically, and essentially then got pushed back and had to scale back the plan. But now he's going around on podcasts, a Billionaire podcast, by the way. There's one called Besties, Billionaire Besties, whatever. This is what's so nuts. But he is going around saying that he believes that these groups that are helping people organize are being funded by the Chinese Communist government because they want to try and slow our AI down so that they can win the AI wars in national security.
And you're pushing back on these protesters against a 40,000-acre data center built out in Utah. This project set to support more than 10,000 jobs during construction alone. Critics say it's going to disrupt the environment and raise electricity costs. This is the main argument from Bernie Sanders. And you're saying that the data center build out is key for America's not just economy, but national security. Tell us about it.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, who would want us to stop building our electrical grid? Who would want to stop us from having compute capacity to develop AI? Which adversary would want that? There's only one. It's China.
This makes me so enraged because at first I was like, oh, the disdain that they show for people's ability to actually organize and accomplish anything is so gross that they don't think people could do it. And then I started to realize that these talking points are actually gaining traction in Washington. And even though the things that they're saying, they're literally making accusations and pointing out organizing groups and funds that have been helping fund these things and insisting that these people are getting money from the Chinese government and being like, we did our investigative work. And then the actual organizations are like, what are you talking about? One of them even used this to fundraise off of as a joke. It's like, we're so not being funded by the Chinese government.
In case you weren't on the internet for the last 2 weeks, Kevin O'Leary, aka Mr. Wonderful, aka the Canadian who's trying to ruin Utah, went on Fox News to accuse us of being agents of the Chinese government.
So here we are, live from Utah. I'm Elizabeth from Alliance for a Better Utah.
I'm Tyler from Alliance for a Better Utah.
I'm Gabby with Elevate Utah.
And I'm Jackie with Elevate Utah.
Biggest news of the day, our hats are in. Unlike the very forgettable Utah national security that Kevin from Canada wore to buy into a little bit of Utah culture, we have designed our own hats, Utah Nature Security, for all those who are opposed to the data center in Box Elder County.
Better Utah, Alliance for a Better Utah. There's nothing in there that's helping Utah. These are proxies for the Chinese government. It's the CPP at work here. There's no question about it.
It's not just now taking off on the internet. Now it's being parroted back in Washington. And I am livid about it because here is a point where people are really rallying together and using the system for them. And now there's basically an alternate narrative propaganda campaign being launched by these billionaires because they're not getting their way, and then being like legitimized by the shills that they probably fund in Washington, essentially to almost start to poison the well and make people feel like, oh, maybe these aren't real people. These are actually communist plants from China. And it's no, these are community members and these are real people. But this is how we then start infighting, and how then people start yelling at the TV and saying that these people that are like community activists are now going to be what, like Antifa? Is that the next thing? Oh my God, please don't buy it. Just don't buy it. This is a propaganda campaign to try and stop us from organizing and fighting for our health and our well-being and our communities. Anyway, that's what's been going on in the world this week and weekends.